Brady. There you go. WWE names Bruce Prichard executive director of SmackDown, replacing Eric Bischoff, says in the second paragraph there. Now, Sean, you and I are not geniuses, and we're also not the only ones when Bischoff was hired 4 months ago. We're not the only ones that said it's a real head-scratcher of a decision. Couldn't understand really why they made that decision. A lot of others kind of questioned it too. So in that regard, it's really not a surprise that he was released. I think before I kind of go into my little rant here, I'll ask you, what all have you heard about the Bischoff thing? Did he move to Stamford? Was he in corporate housing? All of that. Tell me everything that you heard first.
So first off, speak for yourself on the not being a genius thing. Second off, yeah, I'm heard he's stuck with a lease.
What?
Yeah, most people get corporate housing.
Yeah.
Now, I got to say, I've been talking to people close to Bischoff and people on the talent end of things, and that's what I've heard. I can't confirm that. I don't have a copy of the man's lease or alleged lease or anything, but woof, man, it's rough. It was not like I had some people speculate, oh, maybe it's a Bischoff call. No, it was not a Bischoff call. And people close to Bischoff.
Not.
Yeah, people close to Bischoff seem to think he was some sort of fall guy. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, but there were a lot of talent he wasn't familiar with. I had heard a couple stories about him, like talking to a producer and then the producer saying, hey, you shouldn't say that around. And that maybe he was like, oh, who? And there was a wrestler nearby. Then I had also heard that he was one of the guys that was high on Ali and that he seemed to like Ali. I was also told that Bischoff wasn't that hands-on and that Bruce Prichard is very hands-on. However, Bruce Prichard does have that preconceived reputation of being a Vince McMahon guy, being a yes man and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I know Bischoff moved in mid-July. He even gave up, like he would appear on AfterBuzz.
Yeah.
They did a post-show for his podcast. He stopped appearing on that. There was just a lot of confusion about his role among talent.
Yeah.
There were some talent that told me that he would solicit them for ideas and that they were told to go to him with their ideas. And this ranges from guys who aren't on TV to guys who are heavily featured, girls as well. And there was one person that said that they kind of overheard him being like, I don't know if this is what I signed up for based on some of the late meetings and stuff. That could be taken completely out of context, or at least somewhat out of context. So don't exactly quote me on that, but that is something that I was told. And he was subject to the Vince McMahon tirades just like everybody else. But, yeah.
Well, you know what?
Building for weeks.
With all due respect to Eric Bischoff, and again, we talked about this 4 months ago when they announced that they'd hired him. We questioned why would Vince McMahon hire this guy for multitude of reasons. Bischoff, by his own admission, had not kept tabs on the current wrestling landscape. He had admitted that. He hadn't kept tabs on any of the product, didn't know a lot of who the current talents were, current storylines. He hadn't really had success in pro wrestling in 20 years since his days in WCW. His Impact run was a forgettable disaster. The only thing that I could think of at the time to warrant his hiring was that he had experience dealing with network executives. And so, I thought maybe he could help them navigate the waters with Fox. Outside of that, it just didn't make any sense to me why they would hire him. And by all accounts, as you just kind of alluded to, it didn't seem like he was a fit in WWE. His first hire, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, fell asleep on the job his first day and was found by Michael Hayes asleep in one of the writers' rooms.
That's a true story, too.
And even months later, you and I would do this podcast, and I would say, Sean, is Eric Bischoff involved in the creative yet of SmackDown? And you say, I don't think so. You know what I mean? Like
I've had people say, talk about his role from, he solicited ideas to I didn't have any interaction with him at all. And one person said, as far as I'm concerned, he was a guy in a suit next to Vince McMahon. But that person also isn't a wrestler. So it's, different people will experience different roles. For example, there's a giant portion of our staff who has never interacted with you personally. There's a giant portion of your staff who have never interacted with me personally. So different people who have different roles will interact with different people. But, yeah, WWE did confirm to me shortly thereafter that Bischoff was completely gone from the company. That's wild. Fortunately for him, he does have that podcast to fall back on, and the StarCast appearance was that's good for StarCast. That's a nice shot in the arm for them, especially considering their theme. But
Yeah, except that they used a photo of him from 25 years ago. But maybe that was
They did
part
that
of the
for
point.
everybody.
Oh, all right. I didn't pay enough attention. Now I hate to repeat what I said last week on this podcast, but on the heels of this Eric Bischoff news, I have to repeat it. In 2019, at 74 years of age, Vince McMahon is a liability to WWE. And people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. In 2019, he is a liability to WWE. I think that the reason that he hired Eric Bischoff is because he remembered Eric Bischoff from 30 years ago as his arch rival in the Monday Night War. That's why I think he hired him. He remembered Eric Bischoff as that cutthroat guy that gave away the results of the tape shows and told people what's coming up next and all that kind of stuff. That's the Eric Bischoff he remembered. I don't think Vince had any idea that Bischoff did not keep up with the product, had a very unforgettable, disastrous run with Impact Wrestling, and hadn't done anything in recent years aside from a podcast. I just don't think he really knew or understood, and that's why he put him in. The same reason he put Heyman in charge of Raw. Now, granted, Heyman had already been part of the company, but I think he put him in charge of Raw because, okay, Eric was my rival in WCW. Heyman was my rival in ECW 30 years ago. Boom.
It seemed like that's what it was, right? That's how it came off to me.
Yeah.
Which means only one thing, Jimmy.
Yeah.
That when Bruce Prichard ends up stepping down, Dixie Carter will take over SmackDown.
Right. I mean, that could happen. And you know what? I said 30 years ago. I'm wrong. It's more like 20 years ago. But, yeah, it's everybody could see it coming, man. And how many times with Vince McMahon over the last year have we said that? Everybody could see it coming except Vince McMahon. And this is yet another example. He is a liability to WWE in 2019. That is a fact. I bet you Triple H knows it. I bet you he knows it.
I'm sure he does.
But he knows his place in the pecking order, and he also knows where his bread is buttered, and he's going to toe the company line. He damn well knows it. And I guess we'll see what's going to happen. But